All right, so I've got one of my closest friends who I talk with almost every day. His name is Matt Klaskowski. You probably know him. If you're not subscribed to his channel, definitely do so. Um, we talk every now and then about how our approach to photography has changed, and I know for me, and I know for him, um, I guess the best way to explain it is it's a lot more simplified. It's definitely more simplified than what I usually show on my YouTube channel. Like I don't even use Lightroom Classic. You know what I use? I use this. I use Lightroom for the iPad. And I would say I do 95% of my edits on it. And it's not even, it's an iPad Pro. I bought it used. It's one of the M1 iPad Pros, 512 gigs of onboard storage, nothing special. But I import all of my photos on my iPad. I let them sync to Lightroom Cloud. And then I let them come down to Lightroom on my desktop, on my Mac over here, which then backs up to a hard drive. I don't even think about it. I don't worry about it because I don't mean to sound flippant, but I just don't care. Like, I know my photos are safe. They're backed up to Adobe Creative Cloud. And I know that some people just, no matter what, come hell or high water, they will never want to pay Adobe to store their photos to the cloud. And that's totally fine. Some people will never leave Classic. Totally fine. Like I just don't, to me, things like calibrating my display or stuff like that, it just doesn't, I don't concern myself with it anymore. I just want to enjoy. And I enjoy creating these videos. And that's why I am creating this video, because I want to show you my actual workflow. All the other videos on my channel that use Classic, I do that primarily for all of you, the audience that I've built over the years. But I want to now focus more on my actual authentic editing workflow because most of it's done here. The only time I ever go to the desktop really is if I have to do something that I can't do on mobile, like do an HDR merge or a pano merge. And I really hope Adobe brings that to mobile soon. So let me just show you here how you can actually use Lightroom on the iPad to get some pretty awesome results and do some things that you might not have even thought about doing on a tablet. So let's get with that. All right, so here, this is a photo I took at White Pocket, one of my favorite places on Earth because it doesn't even look like you're on Earth over here. It's just such a great place. And if I tap and hold, you can see here, this is the original unedited photo. I'm gonna let go. You can see no changes are made. Same thing if you look on the desktop, I've got the image right here. And so obviously the displays are different, so it might look a little bit different. But again, like I said a minute ago, this doesn't faze me. Almost all of my photos that I've ever shared go on social media. And where do most people these days consume social media? Where do you usually do it? Usually it's on your phone, which is not a calibrated display. Or even if you're viewing it on your computer, odds are, if you're using a web browser, you're not going to see it the way I intend to see it, so to speak, or at least if I went to all these great lengths to make sure that my display is calibrated, you're not going to benefit from it as much. I don't print my photos. I don't enter contests. I don't do any of that stuff. So for me, again, I don't take it too seriously. I just want simple. And so that's why I'm okay if the images look a little bit different, but let's get back to it. So as far as the edit goes, nothing too surprising. I usually start in optics, making sure that the enable lens correction is enabled. And actually really quickly to show you over here, this is a raw file that I'm working on with a Sony a7 II. I took this years ago, back in 2015. That's one of the nice things that I love about having all of my photos synced to Adobe Creative Cloud is that I can access this from anywhere. If I'm sitting in my living room, I could just pull this image up and start editing it. And to me, that is awesome because I do that a lot. I'll just have something on TV passively, and I'll just grab my iPad and just edit a photo. All right, so with the editing, we'll go into light here, and I'm only focusing on the actual foreground, not the sky here. So what I'll do is I'm going to drop the exposure a little bit because what I want to bring out some of that contrast. And I've said it before in other videos, I don't normally use the contrast slider to apply contrast. I use the tone curve. So I'll tap over here and then I'll apply my 3 dots for a basic S curve. So I'll open up the highlights. I'll drop the shadows and you can see how it gets really nice and rich. If I bring the shadow point to the right, the shadows get crushed. And if I bring them to the left, they start to open up. So I don't want it to be too dark, somewhere over there. And then the midtones, I'll open those up also right around there. So that's all I want to do with the tone curve. You can see if I tap just already what an improvement we made. But I am going to go bring out some of those highlights. I'm going to open up the white point a little bit. And if you want to see the histogram, not a problem. All you need to do is double tap on the screen. The first double tap will show you kind of an info view. The second one will bring up your histogram. So we've got this over here. And then the other thing that I can do is if I want to make sure that I'm not blowing out highlights, if I tap on the highlights and I start to drag, and then with my other finger, I tap on the screen and drag, you can see here where it's showing me where I'm starting to blow out highlights. Now, again, I told you I'm not worried about the sky, and I'll show you that in a minute why. But here, everything's looking good overall. I'm not worried about any of this other stuff here. I'll open up the shadows just a bit, and we are looking pretty good. Now, if I wanted to really refine the look of the highlights and shadows, what I can do is go to the mask tool here, and then I'll tap on the plus icon, and I'm going to just add a brush. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my size is good. So here, the first icon on the left here is the brush size. The second is the brush feather. And the third is opacity. So you can see here how we're just going to kind of keep a lower opacity or lower flow brush. And I'm just going to draw where there are highlights, where I want to kind of either preserve or enhance highlights. So right around there and right around there. And now that we have our selection made, I can go back to light over here. I can either adjust the exposure to make it brighter, or I can add more highlights. And you can see how it's only affecting the areas that I painted. And the reason why it's not super strong is because the brush had a low flow setting, which is what I wanted intentionally. I can create another brush for shadows, but I'm okay here. This is essentially kind of like dodging and burning using a masking brush. So this is good here. I'm not going to do anything else in terms of adding any sort of clarity or texture or sharpening yet. And so I'm done with this particular mask. So I'm going to click on done over here, and that'll bring me back to the global editing tools. I'm going to go to color over here. I'm going to take my white balance dropper, and I'm going to put it on somewhere that I know is kind of a neutral gray, just to make sure that I have a correct white balance. And because I'm working with a raw file, it's not a problem. I'm able to get all of these adjustments made. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of a vibrance boost, because I think that's looking just really, really awesome. And I might actually go back to color over here and go to tone curve and then go to the blue channel. The reason why I want to do that is I'm going to warm the midtones. So if I bring it down, you can see how the midtones and also the highlights, I kind of want to add a little bit of a warmer color to that. And then I'm also going to make sure that the shadows are neutral. So I'm going to put my shadow right around there, kind of on the neutral line. And that's looking really cool. So I'm done with the tone curve again. And one more time, actually, let's just go to a full screen view. Here you can see that is the unedited photo. And then what we were able to do with just a few sliders and the tone curve. To me, it's just, I just have so much fun editing in Lightroom on my iPad. All right, before we move on, just give me 1 minute to tell you about 2 brand new courses that I am actively working on, and they are available for pre-order if you click on the link below. The first one is called the Lightroom Mobile Mastery. So if you are looking to get more out of Lightroom on your iPad or your iPhone, you want to learn how to be like a superstar in organizing and editing and sharing your photos and going through all of the different tools and preferences, this course is for you. By the time you're done with it, you're going to know everything you need to know about Lightroom Mobile on the iPad and the iPhone. Trust me. The second course, it's a shorter one. It's called Workflow on the Go. This is more for when you're traveling and you want to kind of downsize what you take with you, but you still want to make sure that you get your photos backed up and imported into Lightroom and safe on an external hard drive. This course will go over everything there. It'll show you what you need to bring with you, what kind of gear you need, and how to make sure that by the time you get home, all of your photos are safe, backed up, and ready to be synced onto your desktop computer. And again, your purchase directly helps support my small business, and it allows me to keep making these videos for you, and I'm very grateful for that. Again, if you want to learn more and pre-order the courses, just click on the link below. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so I mentioned that we're going to do some next level editing, and I kind of hinted to the fact that I didn't care about the sky. That's because I just want to replace it, and I want to do that on my iPad. So here, let me show you how to do that. The first thing I'll do is click on the share button on the top here, and then I'm going to click on edit in Photoshop. Now, obviously, if you want to take this route with the editing, you need to have the Creative Cloud plan that gives you Photoshop, because then you can install Photoshop for the iPad. So just wanted to mention that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit in Photoshop, which will create a copy and send it over to Photoshop. All right, so this is Photoshop for the iPad. And you can see I have my image opened from Lightroom, and it looks kind of familiar to Photoshop on the desktop. You've got your toolbar on the left, the layer panel on the top right, and the layer properties below that. And you can kind of adjust the size of that as well. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a duplicate layer. And I like to do that because I just do that when I work in Photoshop. So I'm going to tap on those three dots, and then I'm going to click on duplicate layer. I'm also going to hide the original layer just so that we don't have that. And the reason why is now it's time to make a selection of the sky. I want to replace the sky. So to do that, it's super easy. I'm going to press on the third icon on the toolbar on the left, and then I'm going to make sure that quick selection is enabled. And then all I'm going to do with my finger is drag along the sky. And honestly, you can't ask for an easier process than that. So with the selection made, I'm going to tap on Erase on the bottom menu bar. And now we have our sky punched out. And so as you can imagine, we need to add a new sky layer. So let's go ahead and deselect this. And I'm going to add a new image from a file as a layer. To do that, I'm going to press on the plus icon on the right over here. And then I'm going to click on Files to open up the Apple Files app. And then I'm going to go to the On My iPad location. And then I have this, this image here that I have downloaded before. So here we have the image. I'm going to go ahead and click on Done on the top right. And I'm going to position that layer below the main image layer. So we now have a sky and our original image. But the problem is that if you see, the highlights or the light source kind of come from the right, but with the sky, it's the sky is being illuminated from the left. So we need to change that. To do that, just click on this icon here, which is the transform tool. And then I'm going to click on the top over here to flip horizontal. Now the sky is kind of more aligned in terms of the directionality of the light. So they both match. And what I can do is I can move the image around. I can move the sky around and expand it. Let's say I want to make it a little bit larger, just so that it fits better. And so kind of like that looks pretty cool. And again, it matches completely. The tone of the sky matches and the direction of the light match. So with that, I can click on Done to exit the transform mode. And now we have an image that, in my opinion, it looks so cool. And I was able to do this on the iPad, but we're not done because I want to do one more thing. I actually want to apply an Orton effect, which will create this kind of soft, ethereal glow. To do that, I'll click on this top layer over here, and I'm going to click on the three dots again, and I'm going to click on Merge Visible. And so what we did here was we merged the two visible layers. Again, I hid this layer here. That's also part of the reason why I hid it, because you can see here the difference between the two. But because only those two layers were visible, they were now merged and combined. And so now we can go ahead and create that Orton effect. And the way to do that is you need to have two copies of that layer. So again, with that layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it. And now what I want to do is apply a Gaussian blur. That's the general way that you apply an Orton effect is you duplicate the layer, you apply a Gaussian blur, and then you use blending modes to get the look. So to do that, I'm going to click on the filters button here. And there you can see is Gaussian blur. So I'm going to tap on that. And you can adjust the amount of blur as you see fit. So somewhere right, maybe around 30 or 25 would be good. And then I'll click Done. And now we have blur applied to the top layer. But what we need to do next is apply a blending mode, which will blend the layer and the layer below it. And I'm going to click over here on our blending modes. If you're familiar with using blending modes in Photoshop, this will be right up your alley. And I generally like soft light. Some people will use multiply, but that gives a pretty strong look. I find either overlay or soft light to be good. And in this case here, soft light is great. And then all you need to do is bring that opacity, the layer opacity to 0 and slowly build in. And you'll start to see that really nice glow in the image here, which I think it just looks so good. And again, we can hide it. You can see it just adds this ethereal look to the photo. And so to me, this is awesome. It looks completely done. The sky is blended beautifully and the Ordnance effect is applied seamlessly. So with that, all I need to do is click on Send to Lightroom on the top left and we can return back. All right, so here we're back in Lightroom on the iPad and you can see that the Photoshop image is here. And if I tap over here, Lightroom is already uploading this to the cloud for backup, and then it'll download it to my desktop. Just so you know here, when we go, let's go ahead and go to this image and view the info. So the original image, my raw file was 25 megabytes. This processed image is obviously a lot larger. It is 442 megabytes. So that's just something to consider when you're uploading. But it is a PSD file, so I have access to those layers and I can always edit those layers in Photoshop if I want. Now, with the image here in Lightroom, there are a few things that I want to do to refine it. First thing is I'm going to take the mask tool here and add another brush mask, and I'm just going to paint over here because, and actually over here and over here too. I feel like the shadows there got a bit too crushed, so I'm going to go ahead and open those up just a bit, not too much, but right around there. And you can see if we click on done, you see how we just brought out some of that detail. Now I could use my Apple Pencil if I wanted to make more refined masking strokes, but to me, I'm not too worried about it. Now, what I want to do is add some more detail specifically to the foreground and some effect to the sky. Again, I'm going to use masking. And again, the fact that I can make these powerful masks on the iPad, it just amazes me. So let's start with the sky first. I'll click on plus and I'm going to use the Adobe AI engine to automatically create an adaptive sky mask. With that, I'm going to go to effects and I'm just going to apply a little bit of dehaze. You can see how it makes the sky just pop. So somewhere right around there looks good. Then I want to create another mask for the foreground. The way to do that is create the sky mask again. And then with that mask selected on the lower left here, you're going to click on the invert button. And that's going to essentially flip the selection. And again, see how clean this mask selection is. It's awesome. And so with that selection made, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of texture to the foreground only. You can zoom in if you want as well to see like what the effect is. So you can see here how adjusting the texture slider adds a little bit more bite. And I'm also going to add a little bit more clarity. But clarity, I like to see the whole image in its entirety. Actually, when I see the entire image in its entirety, that texture slider got way too strong. So I'm going to back off a lot from that. And I'm going to back off on clarity. So that's why it's good to zoom in and also view the image basically fit to screen. Now with that done, I'll click on done because we're done with masking. And now I want to apply sharpening. To do that, I'm going to open up the detail panel. I'm going to zoom in again because that's typically how I apply sharpening. And I'm going to click on the sharpen amount slider here. And then as I drag, I'm going to tap with my other finger. That's going to convert the image to grayscale and it'll make it easier for me to see that sharpening effect. And this works the same on Lightroom Classic if you hold the Option or Alt key. So somewhere right around there looks good. Let's zoom back out. And then just like before with masking, I'll start dragging and tap with my other finger. And I'm going to bring the masking slider until only kind of the outlines of the image appears. And so that looks really, really good. Final thing, if you know me, I love my vignettes. So I'm going to apply just a tiny bit of a vignette. I'm going to bring that close to the center and feather that selection. And so, I mean, to me, we went from actually here, let's reset that image. Let's reset this first image here. We'll go to all. So we started with this photo here on the iPad and got to this photo, which I don't know. For me, it's amazing. It really is. And so if I look at the desktop, I can see that I've got both of my images already synced. When I connect my external hard drive, that file will be backed up to my external hard drive. And so that's what simplicity looks like for me with my editing. Like I can just grab my iPad, go lounge in my backyard or in my living room, work on any photo I've ever taken and, you know, apply some cool treatments, try some different things out because Lightroom is so powerful, especially when you pair it with Photoshop. You can just do all kinds of different things and I don't have to sweat it. I can just enjoy myself, which is really what it's all about for me. I just want to be able to enjoy my photography. But I would love to hear from you. Do me a favor in the comments, let me know whether you want to see more of this kind of content, like the mobile side of photography, whether it's editing using Lightroom and Photoshop on an iPad or iPhone, or even using your iPhone or mobile phone to take photos. I think that's where I'm going because that's where my passion is, to be honest. I really enjoy that. And so let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, if you're interested in learning more about the two courses, Lightroom Mobile Mastery and Workflow on the Go, they're available for pre-order, so click on the link below. If you enjoy this video, a thumbs up is always appreciated. And if you're not subscribed, please click on subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notified for all future videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.